Yeah, and that's the thing is so many people, it can become exasperating. I get it, I understand, and people going, what is wrong with you? But once you come to terms with it and understand it, then the only thing you can really do is manage it,
Right.
and try to go, well, I have this thing, and it's getting rid of false truths. I still had a ton of fear moving to Los Angeles, and where am I going to get a job, or whatever, and how am I going to support myself, and how am I going to meet people,
Right.
and all these things. But the emotion of that and the feeling of coming out of that kind of
Because if you think
pushed
about it,
through
the
it,
safe thing to do would have been to apply to college or to a film school.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because a lot of it's messing up, and now when I write on Barry, we write on these big monitors, and a lot of times I'll be sitting at the laptop, and it's hooked up to a big monitor that the whole writing room can see, and so they're seeing what I'm typing, and I can't spell to save my life,
Right.
and I have terrible grammar, and but the ideas are there, and the inspiration's there, and so it's kind of this thing that in the past I would have been so ashamed of. I used to write papers and give them to friends and go, close, like best friend, and say, "Can you please read this and see if it's,
Tell me about that voice, and have you been able to silence it or diminish it in any way? And when does it pop up?
It pops up when you're about to do something really scary, and it can pop up at any time, but now you kind of become friends with it. You kind of know it and go, oh, there you are. To be honest, what helped me get through it seems weird, was having kind of heroes, kind of filmmaking heroes and comedy heroes, and reading their stories and going, well, God, they did this, and getting inspired by it.
Right.
So then you saw like a road that you could go down, and that kind of alleviated anxiety. Oh, I can get a job as production assistant. I can meet people. Like I had a plan, and that would alleviate. But I would constantly go back. I remember I would read interviews with certain filmmakers or sketch comedy people or anything, and I would reread interviews to kind of calm myself down and be like, oh no, you're on the right track. This is all right.
So it's interesting saying that, because the whole concept of #MyYoungerSelf is to have kids who are sitting around thinking that they are, you called yourself a spaz, but thinking they're somehow defective, to be able to hear someone say, look, I made it through the tunnel. There is a pathway out of it.
That made a huge difference to me. I remember reading some of Sam Raimi, who was a filmmaker I liked, and he said, we just went and learned while we earned, and you don't necessarily need film school, and here's what we did, and going like, oh, great, okay, well maybe I could do that. Full-blown panic attacks before every show, heart palpitations.
You don't go see a psychiatrist then?
I did after I started seeing a psychiatrist, I think, after my third season, But
Did you get a diagnosis? Did they say it's
They
a
just said,
panic
yeah,
attack?
you just have an anxiety disorder. Because, I would become convinced that the lights would fall in the middle of a scene. I would become convinced that someone was going to rush the stage. I became convinced that
Your brain was really playing.
yeah,
misfiring completely.
misfiring all over the place. And then I had this issue with my eye. I had this retina issue where I got vasculitis in my retina, which I think was brought on by stress, but it was. And doctors, going to a doctor's office, and they go, we don't know what caused it, and then your brain and then everything elevated on that. And then to make this calm down, they had to give me prednisone. So then I was off.
Got
manic-y. Yeah, it was pretty bad. And so, what helped me was meditation. I started doing transcendental meditation. That helped me kind of calm and focus my brain. And just this kind of like, it was a thing I was fighting, I guess. And I used to make fun about eating well and exercise and just trying to boost serotonin and calm down the body and try to center the body. It's still there. The anxiety is always there.
So you do the TM twice a day?
Yeah.
And you're pretty religious about it?
Yeah. It's a thing that that just gives me a lot of clarity, and that noise you talk about, or misfires and stuff. It doesn't make the misfires go away, but it calms it down, and it allows me the clarity to say, oh, my mind's misfiring. Do you know what I mean?
So you just mentioned serotonin. There was no doctor who said maybe you should take something that will increase the serotonin or let the serotonin hang around your brain longer, one of these Prozac-like drugs?
No, I was always a bit suspect about. I mean, not suspect, but just I would get uneasy about it, and I went on Lexapro for
It's
a
the same
bit.
thing.
Yeah, Lexapro,
Did it work?
and that helped. It definitely helped, but I think again, my makeup is when
Sure.
I'm on something, I want to
can
be
feel it
off
of
of
it?
it. I want to
Okay.
be off of it.
And what about
I have a lot of doctors going, you're really sensitive, because I'm like, they're like, you're on like the babyest
Right,
amount.
right.
And I'm like, I want off this stuff, you know.
Okay.
But that's just me, you know.
You might say that life like totally came together by the fact that you get a really good paying job, right? Steady job.
Yeah.
Socially, your life kind of comes together too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And yet, it sounds like your anxiety
It's through the roof.
through the roof. Instead of, it's like everything is finally falling into
Yeah.
place. You're not riding around,
No.
looking for a job. You have a job.
No, that's the weird thing about this. And then it always gets worse, it's people go, gosh, I remember getting, Barry and walking through Times Square, and I was hosting Saturday Night Live. I was walking through Times Square with a friend, and we looked up, and there's this massive Barry billboard in Times
And
Square.
you're part of the billboard, right?
Yeah, and I'm part, and it's me.
Yes.
The whole billboard's me.
Right.
And he sees me, he's like, wow, how cool is that? And I go, this is the worst moment of my life. I'm like, this, I can't handle this. I just wanted to curl into a ball. And yeah, both times I've hosted SNL were I was just a full-on wreck.
Even though it's
I've
just
done
a
it.
one-time thing,
Yeah,
right?
just having the whole show on your shoulders, and having to know, and not so much of it's not trusting yourself that you can deliver, and that everyone's watching, and a lot of it is anticipation. It's just the anticipation of it, and then
it's called anticipatory anxiety is real.
Yeah.
You worry about the worry.
yeah, you worry about the worry, and then the weird thing is, I talked to another friend who has anxiety, and she said, but when bad things happen, do you kind of relax? And I go, yeah.
You're expecting
And
it,
I go, oh, good, there it is. Okay, and
remember-
so the big thing is that stigma of, okay, everybody has anxiety, and I get it, where a lot of people say they're anxious, and they
don't have, right.
they don't have. Everybody gets anxious, but it's not a disorder, and people going like, all right, anxiety. It can be kind of a word that makes people roll their eyes and think there's, it's an excuse for not wanting to work or for doing bad or whatever. But if it is a disorder and you know it and you've worked and you get diagnosed with it or whatever, it's a thing that you have to just accept, and not let that idea of you being perceived as melodramatic or
Right.
or distant. That's another thing. I think people see me get very quiet or distant when I get anxious, because I'm trying to think or kind of quiet my mind or try to focus on something.
So-
I think the biggest thing that I wish I had known was that you are going to make a mistake, and and you're going to be fine, And the best thing is to learn from that mistake. Meaning, you raise your hand and you don't know the answer to the question. Is to say you're going to be hard on yourself, and being hard on yourself, that all that stuff that never really goes away, is just changing, accepting that about yourself, and changing other things of going like, well, if that happens again, know that now I do know that, and now it made me study a little harder, or whatever. But I guess the simple thing is that it doesn't go away. You just manage it, and once you kind of can accept it about yourself, and not see yourself as a nuisance or someone that is not taking on other people's perception, and just knowing that you can work through it, and you can actually use it to your advantage. You can use that energy and that voice in your head. You can somehow use it to propel yourself into things that you never thought you could ever do. Because the voice in your head is wrong.